What's up, world? This is Salim with Flip for Figs, and welcome to episode 9 in my figure matchup series. Today, we have Captain Rex from the Clone Wars against Emperor Palpatine from Return of the Jedi. I'll be covering sculpt in detail, accessories, and overall value for the money to see which figure comes out on top. Stay tuned to the end of this video to see who next week's figure matchup will be.
Flip for Figs.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.
Alright, so sculpt and detail wise, Rex is actually only the second clone I have, aside from the original clone trooper from Attack of the Clones, and technically Boba Fett is a clone, but he wears Mandalorian armor. So I know, for many people they have so many clones, so it's kind of easier to compare, but for me, the body, I think it appears to be identical to the Attack of the Clones body. But the weathering is really nice. One thing I like about this one over the Ahsoka version is that the weathering, especially on the helmet, seems a lot more natural, as opposed to like symmetrical scuffs, which I really didn't like about the Ahsoka one. This right here is magnetic, which is great. The pauldron looks really nice. I believe this is either, I don't know, it's like a leathery material. I don't think it's pleather because it's harder, but I don't know if it's leather either, or they just painted it to look like leather, but it's a really nice material there. And this is like a rubberized plastic as well. So I think the only pleather pieces is this right here, and that's magnetic, and so you're not going to put a lot of strain on it, so I think it should hold up well over time. But yeah, in terms of posing, just like any armored figure, it's going to be harder to pose because of all the different armor, but I think you can get it in some pretty dynamic poses. And then there he is with the Tamora Morrison head sculpt on, and this is how I plan to display mine. He'll be holding the helmet, wearing that head sculpt. It looks great. The skin texture is great. It looks, it wouldn't look unusual next to any of Hot Toys' more recent releases. And then there he is with the Ahsoka tribute helmet. I think it looks cool, but to me this looks more like Captain Vaughn, because I've always associated Captain Vaughn with that orange helmet. Again, I've never watched the Clone Wars, but what I know about it, the story behind it is cool, but I won't be displaying him this way, but I'll just kind of set it there on his display base. Palpatine. Sculpt and detail-wise, he looks great. You could take the hood off to reveal his hair, and the wrinkles are fantastic. I'm actually surprised, how well this came out, considering it's a pretty old figure. But Hot Toys really nailed the likeness, and look at the skin texture is just super creepy. I love his all black robe. It's simple, but they've given it a nice texture there. It's not like, Princess Leia from A New Hope, where it's just this flat white piece, which I thought this would be, but instead it's got some nice detail on there. Underneath, he's wearing kind of like, these gray, nice robes, and then underneath that, he's got just black fabric undersuit. And so I really love this robe. In fact, I may need to pick up another one of these robes somehow if someone's selling it, to put on the Clone Wars Sidious, because I want to be able to have a Sidious for my Phantom Menace collection, and he was wearing black robes in the hologram. But yeah, the detail on the figure is great. It's super posable. I know he was flipping around when he was fighting Yoda in episode 2, but I don't think he was moving. He's that agile, but you could still get him into a lot of poses if you want to. Double jointed knees and everything like that. The sculpt and detail work really comes to life when he's inside the throne. The only thing that kind of bugs me is that, his feet kind of dangle in the air when he's sitting down. Otherwise, if you sit him upright, his head hits the top right there. But I think, you can fuss around with it enough just to make it look good. But you could see that he's kind of sitting, kind of slanted, which looks like an uncomfortable position. I don't think anybody actually sits like that. But the way they designed the throne means it's harder to position him in it without kind of laying him back like that. Otherwise, the top of his head is going to hit the top there. But with the light up features, as well as his robes kind of flowing around, he looks really, really great in that throne. Sculpt and detail wise, I gotta give it to Palpatine. Alrighty folks, if you're enjoying this video, please consider subscribing to my channel. I make figure matchups just like this one every week, and I also post the latest Hot Toys reviews whenever I get my hands on them. All right, so for Captain Rex, this is everything you're going to get in the box. So you get his blaster here. You also get 2 pistols, which you can put at his sides in the holsters. You get this, which is compatible with the helmet, and it's like a scope. You also get different hands, kind of pointing hands. I think they're the same exact hands that come with the Attack of the Clones clone. You get the 501st Ahsoka tribute helmet. You also get the Tamora Morrison head sculpt. You get this tool, which is typically used to move eyes, but in this case, it's used to get into the helmet to pop out the scope and the transponder off. And then you have these binoculars, which can attach to the head sculpt as well. Then you have the jetpack, which is magnetic, and you can also display it with the fire. All right, so in terms of Palpatine, this is everything you get in the box if you get the deluxe version with the throne. You get 2 lightning effects, which you can just put on his hands. The lightning effects are cool, but they're just way too long. I mean, I think newer Palpatines got it right because they're long enough, showing it's generating from his fingers, but not too long where it's just kind of gonna flop down and it's harder to display. You can see they're around 12 inches long each, which I think is just too much. You get a standard display base with a crotch grabber, as well as the throne. Now the throne is the focal point of this. It's got beautiful detail on it, and it's also got light up effects. So they don't blink or anything. They're just static, which is a bummer. I think it would have been cooler if they did blink, just to give it a little more flair. You also get this placard here that you could put on the display base, but I don't really see the reason why, because it's almost the identical design with those rivets. It's just diagonal. You get only a few hand sculpts. These 2 are for the lightning, but I feel like they're a little too static for the lightning. They should have been, a little more curvature in the fingers. And then you get like a pointing or force hand, as well as like a pointing finger hand. And then you get Luke's lightsaber, which is a nice touch. And then you get this really cool black cane, although I don't remember ever seeing him holding a cane in the movie. Maybe he did. But yeah, that's everything in the box. So yeah, accessories wise, I gotta give it to Rex. I mean, we saw with the 501st Trooper that you needed to get the deluxe version to be able to get that orange helmet, the Ahsoka tribute helmet. And here with Rex, they gave it to us anyways, even though we got his standard helmet and a Rex head sculpt. The jetpack is magnetic and it's got the flame effects, and you get all of the guns as well as the binoculars, all the hands you would expect. So I think it's just a really great pack. It gives you all the accessories you could possibly want with Captain Rex. All right, now let's talk value for the money. So interestingly enough, I just bought this figure. And so I had the choice between this one as well as the new version, which is from Ahsoka. Now, even though I'm a big fan of Phase 1 clones and I love the Phase 1 helmet, I'm not a fan of all the weathering that they put on both the Phase 1 and the Phase 2 helmet in the Ahsoka set. It didn't look like natural weathering. It looks like very specific scuffs that they just put there, which I'm not a fan of. 2, I wasn't a fan of the fact that they didn't include the Rex head sculpt. I mean, usually when you have a 2.0 come out, it dilutes the value of the original. And in this case, it did. I mean, this figure is really affordable. I don't know if it's because it was super popular when it was announced, so many people pre-ordered and it's flooded the aftermarket, or if it's because there is a 2.0 version. But I got this brand new for under $200, and I think it's a great value. I mean, I've paid $400 or $500 for figures that are a lot more simple and come with a lot less. So I think if you're looking for a Captain Rex figure, don't shy away from this one just because it's not the 2.0, because in many ways, I think it's still an improvement over the Ahsoka version. I think the weathering is more accurate, and it's also, more evenly placed. I think the Rex head sculpt is great. You also get the Ahsoka tribute helmet, which is awesome. And so even though I don't have the Ahsoka version to compare it to directly, I have watched reviews, and I just feel like this one is the better one in a lot of ways. However, because the fact that we do have a new Captain Rex, it means that, if you don't get this specific figure, it doesn't mean your collection is going to be missing a Rex. And so that's the way I try to determine value for the money, is how unique is it in your collection? How critical is it to the collection? And since we did just get a brand new Captain Rex, which also has the Phase 2 and the Phase 1 helmet, you could technically achieve this exact look with the new version. So in that sense, it kind of dilutes the value just a little bit. All right, so in terms of value for the money, this thing brand new was around $300 at the time, which was a lot more than the average cost of a Hot Toys figure, and that's because of this big chunky plastic throne right there. Now on the aftermarket, it's going to run you between $400 and $500 brand new, and you could probably find one for a little over $300 on the aftermarket on Facebook Marketplace and whatnot. Either way, I think it's still a great value for the money, even compared to $400 or $500 figures nowadays. I mean, Palpatine is an iconic character. This is his only iteration in the original trilogy. And if you're going to have him, I feel like you need him with the throne if you have the space for it. I have him displayed with the royal guards behind him, and he just looks super regal and menacing on that throne. The throne itself has really beautiful detail work on it, the color of the interior of the cushion, as well as the fact that they included light features. Obviously, at the time, Hot Toys wasn't doing USB, but like I showed you, you could use one of those battery solutions to keep it lit. He comes with a lot of great accessories. So overall, I think the value for the money is there, whether you're bought it at retail originally or you're buying it aftermarket now, new or used. So in my opinion, Palpatine's taking value for the money. Alrighty, folks, so let's talk results. So this was a pretty hard matchup because these figures are equally matched in the sense that they both have great accessories, they both have great sculpt and detail work, and they're both really good values for the money, whether at retail price or aftermarket. But it is a matchup after all, and there can only be one winner. So my boy Captain Rex won accessories, and Papa Palpatine won sculpt and detail as well as value for the money. So in this week's figure matchup, Papa Palpatine, deluxe version with the throne, takes it.
On next week's episode of Figure Matchup.
When I flip, you flip, we flip.